Okay, are we going there? There we go. Oh, I gotta fix that a little bit. There we go. So I don't get the reflection there. All right. Well, welcome to another movie review stream. My name is Mark McPherson, film critic for movieswithmark.com. And we are now into May, so we've got the summer movie season is upon us if you don't consider it already. So we've got a few new movies to cover. We're obviously going to cover the big new film coming out this weekend, which is Mortal Kombat 2, the sequel to the 2021 reboot based on the video game. We'll also be covering, what else are we going to be covering here? I think we have Blue Heron coming up, uh, which is a fantastic little film I can't wait to talk about, and Atropia, a wartime satire. Did I get the? Yeah, I got that setting. Okay, just wanted to make sure I got all the little subtitles set up here. So yeah. So most of these films are going to be new. Blue Heron, I think, is coming out next week. So Mortal Kombat 2 is coming out this week, and we have what else? There's one other one we get. Atropia is already streaming though, but we do have lots of more movies on the way for coming up here this summer. So if you want to stay up to date on latest movies, be sure that you're subscribed to this channel and be sure to like this to make sure other people know about not just Mortal Kombat, but also smaller films like Blue Heron, which I get a feeling some people might not have seen. Oh, thank you, Nick Stuff, for the super chat here. Why is the super chat not working? Did it show up? It should be showing up. Well, that's weird. You usually shows up. What? Hang on, let me get a quick test here to see this. Okay, the test works, so that so much. But thank you for 4.99. Was there a? Usually we'll list a super chat if it plays. If it might come up. I'll leave them up here once I start doing reviews. So Streamlabs is weird. Sometimes it'll show up, sometimes it doesn't. No worries, just fan of your content. Keep it up. Yeah, well, thank you so much. Yeah. God, I wish I had the. I do have like special alerts working. Maybe it's because I have too many random ones that it's drawing from. So, I'll if it doesn't, I'll try to play. But if you got any special questions and stuff like that, be sure to let me know, and I'll cover it. All right. So let me get everything all set up here. Where's Sorry, I'm at a little bit of a weird angle here. We have to move the camera just a little bit so I can get my notes into frame here. Here we go. Okay. So we'll get obviously, of course, we'll get to the Mortal Kombat 2, since I mentioned that's the big one that most people are looking forward to. And we'll see. Let's see. Here we go. I'll get the notes up here. All right, get a little tea here. Ah, there we go. Nice chai there. Was going it is chai, but I didn't want to say chai tea for the obvious Spider-Man joke that everyone would probably make. Okay, so here we go with Mortal Kombat 2 in 3, 2, 1. So Mortal Kombat 2 is the sequel to the 2021 Mortal Kombat reboot, and I didn't really like the reboot. I thought it was like a little bit too serious, and I thought it kind of like wasted a lot of its time kind of building up the tournament. And with the sequel, I think even though this is from the same director, I think the director understood the assignment this time. I think he realized that a key aspect of Mortal Kombat is that it's a goofy ass game. Okay, sure. I mean, like, there's a loose story of warlords from other realms and monsters that rise from the pits of hell, but it all served just as as a serviceable lattice for the meat of these fighting games, which was just to watch your opponent or yourself explode into giant chunks. I mean, I didn't plunk down like fistfuls of quarters at the Mortal Kombat or I didn't plunk down like fistfuls of quarters at the Mortal Kombat 2 arcade cabinet at my local Shakey's because I cared that much about whether or not the fighters that I played as would win the battle. I just wanted to see all the violence and the gore and all the weird finishing moves like animalities and babalities and friendship. So it was a very very ridiculous, dumb game that had just a loose enough story to weave it together. And this movie, I think, brought back a lot of that intoxicating thrill, which is, and I think it's very fitting for this film because it feels like it's tonally faithful. I mean, materials. On a tactile level, the movie is. Sorry, I was going there. I mean, on a tactile level, the movie it is faithful to the games. Like, there are a lot of familiar characters and costumes and locations and special moves, but more than anything, I think tonally, for matching like the goofiness and the goriness of the games, that's what mattered most. And I think the film finds a good balance between a lot of the gore effects from the 2021 film and just the dumb the confident dumbness of the 1990s film, which I adored. I admired the spirit of that film, and this kind of feels like a good combination of both the dumb fun and the ridiculous violence, which is kind of Mortal Kombat, you know. So I'm sure there's a big question for a lot of people, which is like, do I need to rewatch that film from a few years ago, the reboot? And you kind of don't, mostly because like they reveal a lot of the story in flashbacks. But you really don't need to know too much about the characters here, especially since they establish a bunch of new characters. In particular, they establish Johnny Cage, played by Carl Urban, which is just like a perfect choice. Like, Carl Urban has this like perfect just this weary gruffness to him that I think works well for Johnny Cage, who's staged in this film as an action hero who is kind of like past his prime. Like, he starred in like a bunch of big Hollywood movies, and he was kind of like a big action star, and now he's just kind of now he's just like begging for money at conventions. It's not working out for him. So he's kind of like drowned himself in the bottle, and when Raiden shows up, once again played by once again played by Tadanobu Asano. When Raiden shows up and says, like, look, I want you to fight in this tournament to save Earthrealm. If we lose this battle, Earth is going to lose to this evil warlord of Shao Kahn. And of course, after hearing all this, Johnny Cage, with not really having any special powers, just says, no, F that. I can't do this. Why did you all choose me for this fight? This sounds pretty ridiculous. And it's that kind of knowing nature that I think really makes this film so much fun, is because it does have a story with stakes. There is a reason why the combatants are fighting for their realms, not just for Earthrealm, but also for the competing realm here, because you get to know the character of Kitana. You realize that So with Kitana, they set her up as somebody whose father was murdered by Shao Kahn, and now she's serving this realm and fighting against the Earth realm. So she's very conflicted about wanting to fight them. So there's a pretty good story there, but I think having that along with like Johnny Cage kind of reacting to all this with a kind of like cynical attitude and pop culture references, I think has like a good balance of like the ridiculousness and kind of like the tongue-in-cheek aspect of establishing all the fantasy for this type of setting. Because I think that goes a long way, because when you get to like the first fight, you're invested enough in the characters on both sides where you're kind of wondering, oh man, I wonder who's going to win here. Like, I'm not sure if I really want to root for the Earthrealm here. I kind of got to know a bit of these characters on the other side, and I kind of understand their plight. So it kind of makes the battles a little bit more interesting. Now, of course, I'm sure a lot of fans are wondering, is there a lot more fatalities? Because if you watch the reboot, there weren't as many fatalities in that movie. And yes, there are a lot of fatalities in this film. But what I found most fascinating is that the fights that don't have fatalities, I actually found much more compelling. And I think that's just because of the way that the fights are staged. Like, they're not just set up in like an arena of dirt and there's people cheering all around them. They're actually in a variety of different settings. They're in like villages of wood and villages of straw. They're on bridges and pits of acid. They're in the depths of hell, and they're using the environment all around them. I think that's what I loved so much about the fights in this movie, which there are a lot. And if you are going to have that many fights, there needs to be some variety to it. Instead of just being like, a series of kicks and punches before the inevitable killing blow of the fatality, where someone gets their head smashed in, or gets a limb chopped off, or it gets, or it gets parts of their bodies like diced up like they're at a butcher shop. That is in the film. All that goriness is in the film, and it is fun. But there needs to be like a little bit more tension to it than just, waiting for that moment to happen. And the way that like characters get like tossed through buildings, and they use like the environment around them, like they use like the skeletons around them to beat on others, how they use bone, how they use like pits of acid, just all the different little details makes these fights a lot more compelling, while at the same time pretty funny, especially with Johnny Cage's many fights, where he keeps on stressing that his only superpower is just that he's a very handsome actor, which turns out to have its benefits, especially during the fight with Baraka, which has it has just like the perfect punchline that I will not reveal here because it's too good. So yeah, this film, I think some people might be dismayed. I think that it kind of like goes through a lot of characters really quickly here. In particular, you might remember the character of Cole, who was a big deal in the last film. He kind of gets kicked to the curb here. It kind of feels like he's like outstayed his welcome, and he's kind of being crowded out by the other characters. And there are, in fact, a lot of other characters from the Mortal Kombat games who just kind of like show up to serve a purpose, and you don't know too much about them before they either like step aside or they get killed in battle. And I think I would say that's a flaw if it weren't for the fact that this story is pretty goofy, that if you slowed down too much, you would start questioning too much of the mechanics, and it would get tedious. And it thankfully never did. And I think that works because of the abundance of characters in between all these pretty cool fights. Like they bring in like Quan Chi, who is just, you don't need to know much about Quan Chi from the games. Like, he shows up in this story because he's a necromancer. He brings people back from the dead. Okay, got it. Scorpion shows up, and they just establish him as the spirit, this soul who wants revenge for his family, and he gets another chance at that. There are some flashbacks here and there to, set the stage and let you know that, oh yeah, remember these characters from the last film. But even if you haven't seen it, you don't need to worry because it's not important. All you need to know is that Earthrealm needs to defeat Shao Kahn and his minions in order so that the Earth isn't enslaved. And that's pretty much all you need to know, and all the little details about fighting for the throne and characters trying to find their powers and who they're fighting for. It's all just kind of, it's not as important. Like, it serves a purpose. It does give motivation, and it does give tension, but you don't want to spend too much on it. Otherwise, like I said, you're going to question it. You're going to be spending the whole movie just debating the mechanics of how does this kingdom work? How does the fight work? Who are the elder gods? It's like, it doesn't matter. It's like they bring them up, they're mentioned, they're not that important. You get back to the fight. And you establish like an arc for the characters that matter, that you care about, and have a few surprises along the way about who's not going to make it in this fight, which Earthrealm they lose quite a bit of fighters in this movie, way more than the last one. And on that degree, I really like the film just because I really like this film because it understands a good balance of the dumb and the violent, and that kind of like almost tongue-in-cheek seriousness of this fantasy scenario. Like, it understands that this is silly, but also that you want some stakes there. You want to feel a little bit more weight in the fight instead of just waiting for the gory reveal, which thankfully there's a lot more than just meaty chunks. So the bulk of the ensemble performs well in the fight choreography and the absurd dialogue, but the crucial component of this picture is Johnny Cage, and not just because of because Urban is perfect for the role. He's really fun in this. His brazen, blunt manner grounds the picture in relatability while preventing it from drowning in its own video game citations and its self-seriousness. Because the games were never serious, so why should this film treat all of its like like its necromancers and warriors brought back from the dead, and the revival of Kano with such stern seriousness. Like, sometimes you need to just point out the ridiculousness in order to make Katana's vengeful quest more fulfilling than just being more blood, just being just instead of just like framing her as one more bloodthirsty player who's hiding behind a mask, which thankfully she doesn't. She actually takes off the mask at several points, which is good because I want to get to know a lot of these characters instead of just all of them being behind different color coordinated masks like they're Power Rangers. So, and in particular, I should also mention that I really did like Katana's performance by Adeline Rudolph. Like I said, she takes off the mask, but also like a lot of her fights are very physical and very creative. Like, I mean, sure, you know that she has those those fans with the knives, which do cut up people. But I love the scenes of her like scaling roofs and leaping through the air, and the way that she like bounds off of buildings and like drags a knife down into the wall. I love all of her moves, and I love how there are stakes to her character instead of just being like one more player. So yeah, I really liked her performance, and I actually kind of liked to. I really did like her performance, but I also loved her little fan with the blades, especially for like the big finale in which she uses them. Which let's say this: if you're familiar with her finishing moves, there is one you're really gonna love. Among all the others. And that's the other thing that I love about this film is how it weaves in all the different references from the games. More on a visual level than just like a stability level. Like, they're Easter eggs. Like, you don't have to have played the games to appreciate the linear style of a lot of the fighting environments, or familiar locations, or even just like at one point they pay tribute to like when you almost defeat a person, they're kind of like staggering around. They have like a great setup for that. But again, you don't have to watch. You don't have to play the games to know that. It's just a funny gag, and it works well, and it serves its purpose with the tension of whether or not this character will die in this fight. So everything about the sequel has more personality, including the fights, as a huge improvement. Like I said, the environments, they have a lot going for them. Even the scenes that replicate the linear framing of the games, there's more at stake in these fights, with dialogue that extends beyond the grunts and the expectant finish him, which, yes, they do have that in the film. They have everything the fans want, but also enough to be an enjoyable, dumb, fun action film without having to play the games, or without having to like come in with a laundry list and say, oh, the film needs to do this, this, and this. If you want to play that game, that's fine, but it's not necessary. It's not a requirement to understand the film or enjoy it. You can enjoy it just fine. Like when I was watching all these brutal fight scenes, the crowd was just eating it up. They were laughing, they were clapping, they were hooting and hollering for scenes of decapitation and limbs being torn off and ripped apart and just all these betrayals. Like it was fun stuff. I mean, like, is the story dumb? Yes, it's very dumb. It's very ridiculous. And so is the dialogue. A lot of the dialogue that these characters spout is just so goddamn ridiculous. And I kind of wouldn't have it any other way. They never linger on it long enough where it becomes too serious or too pretentious in several moments. There's just the right amount of that seriousness and the ridiculousness. Because I thought for sure I would get tired of Johnny Cage's many jokes. I didn't. Kano shows up again, and he has a lot of cynical jokes as well. I thought I'd get tired of him as well. I don't. There's just enough of him in this movie where you can appreciate him, and you like him, and you like what all these different silly characters add into the mix without it feeling like a total mess. It feels like there's a good balance of enough here. Like, now, sure, would it be great if there was a lot more backstory to Johnny Cage and, we got to explore a little bit more of the grief within Liu Kang? Sure. But also there's so much else going on in this film, and you kind of have to ask yourself, like, what matters more? Do you want to see the full backstory of Liu Kang with Kung Lao and his deep feelings? Do you want to see the rocky road that led Johnny Cage down the path of an action hero who was betrayed by Hollywood? Or would you just like, or would you just like to, leave those blanks filled in your mind and just get right to the fun that you could have with these characters in this martial arts setting. Because like I said, the tournament, it starts like right away. Like it doesn't even start in the reboot. It starts like within maybe like 10 to 15 minutes in this film. And they just like they jump into it. There's no preamble, there's no like, opening announcement, there's no like let's get ready to rumble. No, it's just like bam, the tournament's here. We gotta go. Let's do it now. We wasted a whole film. We gotta get to it in the sequel. So Mortal Kombat 2 pulls off just the right moves for a faithful video game that is equal parts fun, faithful, and filled with fatalities. Like, it still has all the stuff from the Mortal Kombat games, but it never relies on you recognizing the final stage setting to appreciate the daring climax. Scenes of Johnny Cage versus Baraka are more entertaining for their staging than just being a series of punches before the inevitable finishing move. And there's like I said, I can't stress this enough. There's a fusion of the dumb enthusiasm from the 1995 film and the gory craft of the 2021 reboot. And it combines for just this ideal dose of dumb, gory, violent fun. And in other words, it's the best kind of Mortal Kombat movie. One more time in the last bit. In other words, it's the best kind of Mortal Kombat movie. Techno Syndrome theme song and all. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with Mortal Kombat 2. So Mortal Kombat 2 is playing in theaters this weekend. What is going on with super chats? Thank you so much for the super chat, KJ Sana. But what is... I gotta check this out. Wait.
I'll buy that.
Okay, the super chats are kind of working.
This is a test super chat message.
Dang it. Well, I'll read it out anyway, since I didn't read. Technical problems, I'm sorry. So let's see. Last Friday at an Electric Light Orchestra tribute concert. Last Friday I was at an Electric Light Orchestra, or ELO. I just like to say ELO. ELO tribute concert event. Having been a huge ELO fan since 8th grade, it was an amazing experience. Wow, I listen to ELO every once in a while on the radio, but yeah, I don't think I've ever heard like a concert tribute to them. That must be, what was it, like a big concert, or was it kind of like a medium-ish venue? But I imagine it must have sounded incredible. Because I was gonna say it's been a long time since I've really listened to ELO, but I listen to it every once in a while in the radio, Let's see. Rody NT says, War fan. Oh, let's see. Read some of this stuff here. Let's see. Nick Stuff says, my wife and I are still on the fence about going to Mortal Kombat 2. I would say if you really like if you like the 1995 film, I think that's a good barometer to establish whether or not it would be for you. So, because if you like that ridiculousness, if you like a film that can admit when a lot of the stuff it's setting up, especially within Mortal Kombat, it's kind of silly, it's kind of ridiculous, and kind of stupid at points, I think you'll enjoy the film. Because it's a good balance of like the humor and the seriousness. Because yeah, you do want seriousness, you want stakes, you want to care about the characters, but at the same time, you've got characters that look fucking ridiculous. And there has to be like a confidence to point that out. It's like, yeah, this is kind of fucking stupid. We're gonna go with it. We're gonna keep a serious like tongue-in-cheek aspect to it, but it does help to point it out every once in a while. That's what I like so much about the Justice League animated cartoon, is that yeah, it's got a pretty serious story about like Cadmus and how they deal with world-ending threats, but there's also like good jokes in there to like recognize it's kind of silly that characters dress up like bats, and and have ridiculous powers. Like, you gotta admit that every once in a while. Let's see, Rodian T says, Warfan is one of the names of the weapons that could... The Warfan, that's right. Sorry, I interpreted that as you were a fan of war. I should have connected that. Yeah, the fan with the knives in it. That makes sense, yeah. Which makes sense, yeah. Her name's Katana. It's called Tessin. Okay. That's the word. Yeah. See, is it Whedon-esque in its acknowledgments of its silliness? I would say it doesn't. I would say it's not like to that degree of just saying like, oh, like what am I gonna say, like come over here or something. It's not on, it's not a self-level-aware silliness. It's a type of silliness where it's just, it's characters who are in the moment. They would recognize like, well, wow, this is pretty dumb, and why does everyone kind of look the same? It's just like self-aware moments that I think make it work. Like there are a few pop culture references here and there, but they're just kind of like rattled off like quickly. Like Kano has a few really good ones in which I think at one point he refers to like Quan Chi as what's his name, I think he says Voldemort, but I think he also says like Voldemort's nutsack or something. So and then he makes a comment on his eyeliner. It's just like that's good. They're good passing jokes, and the fact that there's a lot of them that can be delivered so quickly and they don't harp on them for too long, I think it's good. I think that is probably the best thing I could say about Mortal Kombat 2 is the pacing. It's paced quick enough that it never lingers too long on the silliness or the seriousness. So that it makes you care a little bit more about it. It's dumb fun that's not as much of a guilty pleasure. You don't have to feel too guilty about appreciating a film that has a good balance of over-the-top gore and characters cracking jokes. Yeah, you're not a fan of actual war. I figured. That's this kind of question. Like, that's is that what you're a fan of? Let's see. Kajixana says it's a packed auditorium. Oh my goodness, that's gotta be a sight. Damn, now I kind of want to listen to ELO. I might have to after this stream. I am wondering what is. Am I? God dang it. Let me double check some of the settings here. Oh, that's why. It wasn't turned on for super chats. Here we go. Oh. Dang it.
This is a test super chat message.
I got it working for a minute there. But I think I had to... Oh, wait, here we go. Here, I turn it on here. There we go. Wait, why is it not working? What in the... Oh, I got to enter a value? Hang on. Okay, there we go. Please enter an alert duration. Where's alert duration? Dang it. It's been so long since I've checked these settings. Hang on. We'll get to... Let me just fix this technical difficulty here before we get back into it. Where is the alert duration in there? Okay, I think it's turned on. No, it's not. It's not. Oh, God. Well, I'm going to have to resolve this after the stream. But thank you so much, KJXana and Nick Stuff, for Super Chat goals, for your Super Chats. Very much appreciated. And I swear, I had this thing set up, and then Streamlabs just effed me on this. If I could just find what the duration was on this thing that's tripping it up, I could fix it. But whatever. We'll do that after stream. I'm not going to waste your time here. All right. Let's I didn't notice I left the Super Chat goal up there. I'm gonna bring that off there just for the Blue Heron thing, just because like I forgot. Like it looks a little classier if I have this on here. All right, so here we go with review of Blue Heron in 3, 2, 1. So Blue Heron is a film from Sophie Ramvari, and it is just. This is such a fascinating film because while I do think it's definitely a very personal project that is meant to reflect Sophie's own her own past and kind of like coming to terms with her childhood memories and more or less the idea of nostalgia. But I think it's going to touch a lot of people like it did me, because I mean we all have hazy memories of childhood that we'll never be able to fully remember, let alone replicate. And this is a vulnerability that Rumvari takes with she takes one more time. This is a vulnerability that I think Sophie Rumvari takes with her semi-biographical film Blue Heron. She never settles on it as a perfect reflection of her family life in the 1990s, painting the echoes of... What she's essentially doing is painting the echoes of years that we can never return to or fully recall. And although that angle alone would make the film appealing on its surface, the daring to tinker with this subject through the meta and surreal elements it just leaves a far greater emotional impact. So the movie is set in 1990s Canada, and it follows the young Sasha. One more time with that. The movie is set in 1990s Canada, and it follows the young girl Sasha, who is getting used to her new suburban life with her large family. From her eyes, we can see all the problems from a distance. Her mother is stressed by the family finances, which leads to fights with her father. One more time with that. I screwed up that last bit. Yes. Sophie can sense that there's like financial problems, the way that her mother and her father argue. And there's also a debate they have about how they are going to raise their children. Like the mother clearly struggles a lot, while the father is a little bit more absent, but does find fun stuff to do with his children every now and then. And the full situation is never fully revealed. We're just kind of like watching the frustrations from the curious innocence of childhood. So we're essentially seeing it from Sasha's point of view. So Sasha she'll take note of her quiet teenage brother, of Jeremy, and Jeremy has problems. Like she witnesses moments that her parents... she can sense that there's something wrong with Jeremy. Like Jeremy is clearly at odds with his parents. You know, he's defying them. He's a little bit suicidal. He's having problems. And dang it, one more time. I had to clear my throat there. We'll have it with Jeremy a bit. So Jeremy has a lot of problems. You know, he's very quiet. He's distant from his parents. He'll run off. He'll spend money that his parents gave him for other things, and he'll steal. In particular, Sasha witnesses Jeremy stealing when the parents don't. So it feels like we're seeing aspects of childhood that only Sophie notes, but also like we're not getting the full picture. Like Sophie kind of watches her father try to console a very like violent and angry Jeremy in his bedroom, and Sasha's just kind of like looking from the window outside the house, not being able to hear everything or know everything in that moment. It's like, but she can this. But Sasha can she can see quite a bit. Like she catches glimpses of her parents arguing, and their efforts to shield their children don't conceal everything. She can see the handcuffs on Jeremy, and it's clear that he won't be in the house much longer. So while Sasha's father favors video recordings of their suburban life, there's a whiff of uncertainty in how much that Sasha remembers. Atmospherically, there's so much that seems familiar from such a childhood, and as somebody who grew up in the 90s, I can relate. You know, the shuffling of cereal in the plastic container, the sounds of Looney Tunes coming off the TV on a lazy day, the distant lawnmowers and foreground splashing of the sprinkler on a summer day. And I think like Rumvari captures all these little moments in a way that makes us feel like we've been here and that we can connect with Sasha. That's why I'd be very curious to see what like Gen Z or Gen Alpha has to say about this film, and whether they can understand that recollection. Because like as someone who grew up in the 90s, I got that, but I'm sure there's a lot of familiar beats that much younger audiences would take from this movie. Let's see here. What is that? Oh yeah, here it goes. But the film throws us a curveball as Sasha ages into adulthood, taking more notice of video recordings and troubled families. In the same way that the movie steps out of time, so does Sasha, who meshes into a transmundane field trip into the past. And without giving away this surprisingly somber revelation, the film feels as though it's tackling the question of what we would do if we woke up in the 1990s again. And the answer delivered in this movie is one that feels more personally honest and emotionally devastating. So there's a deeply personal and even tragic manner in which Sophie forces the audience into the same position of questioning of our own memories. Like, we've all had those thoughts about what we could do if we went back in time and knew what we knew now. But I mean, what would we really do? Like, would we try to prevent what happened to us, or just experience it, just try to understand it better, through adult eyes? Would we make any difference, and could we make any difference? These are a lot of interesting questions that I think Sophie kind of low-key tackles when she gets to this very like emotionally honest but also like gut-wrenching third act that just surprises you. And there are only bits and pieces of Sasha's history that were left in her position. And one more time with that. There are only like bits and pieces of Sasha's history that are revealed that we're kind of left in a position of trying to put the pieces together from her small stature. So a close moment with her father has her using MS Paint to draw an animal on the computer, and it's a very familiar activity for any household that grew up with a computer. And it's portrayed with so much more clarity than trying to understand what was going on with Jeremy, because it's a very uncomfortable thing to address, like, a very troubled teenager. And you want to like think back, if I were in that moment, and if I had the adult mind that I have now, and the experience that I do, what would I say to my sibling who was in trouble? What would I do to make it better? What would I confess? What would I talk about? And there are answers to those questions, but I think they're honest in a way that, on a fantastical level, you say, yeah, well, I do this, and this, and I would let all these feelings spill out, and I would warn them about this, and I would try to make their lives better, and I would try to like fix the future. But in truth, if we were kind of in that moment, we just kind of want to just savor it, just try to understand better. And I think that's what makes the film so powerful, is that it's not a film about trying to unravel the mystery of the past or trying to fix it. It's more about trying to understand it and trying to be in that moment. Like, there's a very sobering moment where Sasha more or less just kind of like confronts her parents and just realizes what they were going through and what they saw in Jeremy and the feud that they were having, and it makes them so much more relatable rather than just being these just being a patriarch and a matriarch that are just off to the side making all these edicts like they're gods that we can't fully understand. No, they're just human beings struggling to maintain a family, and it's not going well. And there's, even though you can't see like what's eroding the family from the outside, you can sense there is something wrong. And I think that's what Sasha is trying to figure out in this film more than anything else. So throughout the movie, there is a maddening mystery with no lucid conclusion. We know the parents are having money problems, but we don't know many of the details. We know that Jeremy has psychological problems, but we never gain a full perspective of where his problems have led him. All we're left with is that sensation of internal emotional closure as an adult Sasha navigates this familiar landscape of unresolved feelings like a ghost haunting the place where she once lived. And though the film ends with a composition of her thoughts, there is always a my voice cracked. Though the film ends with a composition of her thoughts, there is always a lingering tingle about how close it comes to cracking its own fiction as it delves deeper and deeper into a very personal story. The film nearly becomes a form of therapy as Sasha attempts to better understand her parents' perspective and to shape the words that she would want to, basically the words that she would want to have with her brother if she could have just one more moment with him again. So this is the type of movie that This is the type of movie that sticks with you for days after seeing it, forcing you to question yourself more, the way that Rumvari taps into her reflections of the past. One more time that I garbled that. This is the type of okay. This is the type of movie that sticks with you for days after seeing it, forcing you to question yourself, kind of in the same way that Rumvari taps into her reflections of the past. The bleeding of filmmaking and nostalgia is presented in a way that never feels indulgent, but is always curious to learn the more uncomfortable truths. In the in the same way that Sasha listens behind, in the same way that in the same way that Sasha listens behind closed doors to the family arguments, Rumvari still feels like she's doing the same with her movie, composing a narrative from within herself and seeing what personal revelations just kind of bubble to the surface. Because we're all children, still. We are all just children, still struggling to understand ourselves and the world, with a few moments here and there where we witness new perspectives and come to terms with our cobbled thoughts. And Blue Heron is just a brilliant exploration of that part of our minds in this very meditative movie that it gripped me from beginning to end, and it's just emotionally devastating by the end. I gotta sorry. So yeah, I absolutely loved Blue Heron. It forced me to recall so much of my own childhood and debate what I would do if I went back there in a very personal and meaningful way that I felt just like resonated so hard, even though this does feel like it's very much more of Rumvari's type of film. But I think it's personal enough where I think a lot of people will be able to see themselves in this type of movie and just hit you deep within your heart. So yeah, I loved the hell out of Blue Heron. This is one of the best movies of 2026. So Blue Heron will be opening in theaters next week. So if you want to see a damn good film, be sure to check out Blue Heron. Next stuff says Blue Heron's interesting. It is, yeah. Next stuff says we skipped out on Mario Galaxy, but I think we'll do Mortal Kombat 2. That's a good call. That is. I enjoy myself way more in Mortal Kombat than I did with Mario. And I know some people, after I did my whole like video game movie essay, will be saying like, well, is it just because you like the franchise more? Or you play? I actually have about the same familiarity and amount of games played with Mortal Kombat as Sonic, and around the same time frame. So it's on that same level. I have the same mindset for the Sonic movies that I did with Mortal Kombat, and I enjoyed Mortal Kombat a lot more. I found it way more fun. I thought the jokes landed, and it's fun watching people get chopped up in a silly ass film like this. Let's see. Okay, so we got through Blue Heron. We got. There are two more reviews I want to get to. I know I said I was going to do Atropia, but there is one more movie that I'm going to review. It's not much of a surprise. It's a movie that's already out, but I thought I'd talk about it. So we'll leave some time at the end for little Q&A, little extra stuff here. But let's get to Atropia here. We'll finish off the third big review. There's a fourth one, but it's gonna be a much smaller review. Here we go with Atropia. In 3, 2, 1. So Atropia is a satire of the post 9/11 world, but it doesn't really hit as hard as it should, because the military-industrial complex is such a mess that trying to frame satire around it is a tall order. And this is the conundrum that faces Atropia, which is posed as a satire of the post 9/11 world that struggles to find the right words in conveying how messed up the 2000s really were. There are concerns about why we shouldn't be sending troops into a pointless war, and there is the Islamophobia that came with the era that's presented in this movie. But any greater depth, But any greater like tapping of the dread, paranoia, and exhaustion in this era of rampant jingoism just gets lost in the shuffle of the low-key quirks and offbeat relationships. Like, I mean, consider how the film opens with a dramatic Middle Eastern setting of American troops failing to handle a terrorist attack. And then the camera pulls back to reveal the character of Feiruz, played by Aliyah Shawkat, who isn't mourning the loss of a fellow villager, but rehearsing for the arriving soldiers and maybe a talent scout to get a better gig. Because she is serving on a set called Atropia, which is meant to be a reflection of the Middle East that soldiers can train on before they go off to war in Iraq. And they stage Atropia as just like, a random Middle Eastern setting, but also have like, believable villagers and special effects and a news report, just trying to like stage all this material so that it will prepare them for the war in Iraq or Afghanistan or any place in the Middle East where they may be sending them off to. So, getting back to Feiruz, she describes herself to the other actors as an authentic Iraqi actress because she grew up in Iraq, but it's a lie. However, when she later reveals this secret, there's very little surprise from her coworkers who are not Iraqi, but are just, non-white people who got these roles. Like, there's Mexican people, there's all different people who just fill in for, looking like Middle Eastern people for this very racist exercise. And in a box like Atropia, where everyone is playing pretend and not being themselves, such revelations feel as though they're mundane, or that they're routine for the staging of Atropia's fictional setting. And I think that really works against the film because it doesn't feel like there's much surprise in that setting. Like when everything is kind of like fictionalized and nobody's really taking too much of this, this little skirmish seriously, it really lessens the impact. So there are a lot of moments. One minute. There's a lot of There's a lot of effort put into the staging of Atropia, showcased and spoken of with as much depth as a Wes Anderson submarine. As one more time, I screwed that whole thing up one more time. Now, there's a lot of effort put into the staging of Atropia. Where there's as much detail here as there was in like Wes Anderson movies, like the submarine in Life Aquatic, or the hotel in the Grand Budapest Hotel. And I like all the little details here. Like they have like a whole. They go through all the different makeup effects. They argue over limbs. They debate about their meals and the pyrotechnics and how where the camera is going to be placed and where the troops should be and how much interaction the troops should have with the different villagers. There's a lot of detail there, but compared to like a Wes Anderson film, which managed to find the quirks in that scenario, there's this tedium to how the film keeps bringing up the special effects used to make Atropia smell like burning flesh. Like it feels like there should be a better punchline for how they can control the smell, and there never is. The joke is just that they keep bringing up like, oh yeah, we can emit a gas that can make it smell like burning flesh, and it's just like that's the joke. It's just that it's burning flesh. And going along with that, the assortment of rubber limbs, fake blood, and pyrotechnics, it becomes so commonplace that there isn't much humor to be had in the deadpan questioning of how to perform a death or how much blood is enough to make an accurate-looking news report. Even the twist of one of the characters being pregnant feels just far too casual for the rather gross manner in which it's discovered. And the great absurdity in all this is that there isn't much of anything going on in Atropia that is going to prepare these troops for Iraq. It's a notion that always feels a little too far beneath the surface, as the film focuses mostly on the romance between Feiruz and the soldier Abu Dice, played by Callum Turner. And initially, Feiruz uses Dice to get herself front and center with Hollywood talent, because there is a visiting actor there for a role. The actor isn't given a name, but he's played by Channing Tatum, and it's Channing Tatum, and it's believable. You could believe Channing Tatum training to be in a war film and just like following around these soldiers. But when this effort But when this effort fails of Feyrouz trying to get a good acting gig, the two just the villain, the actor and the soldier fall for each other. Given that there isn't much else going on between following orders and taking stage direction. And to be fair, Turner, the to be fair, the two of them, they do have good chemistry, and I do appreciate their acting. But it always feels, I feel like they're victim of this type of, not just the setting, but the story, because it always feels like it's at odds with the satire of war. With this movie just kind of like falling back on cliches, while the story simultaneously tries to subvert stereotypes of the war on terror. Like Feyrouz and Dice, they deserve better, but the only thing more tragic than their somewhat star-crossed romance is that their heads are still slightly engulfed in the patriotism Kool-Aid for still having faith in what they're doing. That we're making a difference here. It might not look like we are, and we might not fully believe it, but we have to keep up that idea that this is for the good of the country. They just have so much faith that this set of a future Jarhead sequel will pay off for them in some way. They don't know how, but some way. And even the supporting roles of Tim Heidecker and Chloe Shui, I mispronounced her name. I'm gonna take that one out there. Hang on. Even the supporting roles of Tim Heidecker are just reduced to punchlines that are far too simple for the scenario. Tim Heidecker is supposed to be playing this military official who's really bad at his job, and he has to spell out we blow all our money on sushi so that we can have a bigger budget next year. It's okay, you're just gonna spell out the satire here. Okay, I felt like there could have been more there, but I guess not. And just that's the biggest problem. There's wasted potential in how Atropia tries and fails to address the theatrics of war, more content to just swoon with its own quirks than shoot at its targets. And for a story that's set 2 decades apart from the era of unhinged patriotism following terrorism, this movie, it still feels, it seems like it's lost in the same haze of that era, as though the smoke never cleared and we're just still trying to figure out what went wrong. And if you can't do that, you might as well hook up in between there with a decent romance. So yeah, this was a very frustrating film because I like the actors, I like the setting, and I like their performances, but as a war satire, especially for an interesting setting where you could have really good war satire, it just feels like it's pulling back too much of its punches when it really should be hitting hard at an era that we should be scrutinizing more. So yeah, as a romance film, it's all right, but as a war satire that it's framed on top of, it really falls short. So yeah, I was very disappointed in Atropia. So if you want to watch Atropia, it is currently streaming on the Mubi streaming service. So if you want to, if you're curious to see the Channing Tatum bit in there, or want to see what Tim Heidecker's role is like, it's streaming on Mubi. Mubi, I should say, Mubi. For those not familiar with the service. Let me read through some of the chats here before we get to one more. Let's see, before we get to our last review here. Blue Heron signs it. Yeah, it is. Asylvania says, howdy y'all. Yeah, nice name. Okay. There's one more movie I'm going to review, and this is going to be a very short review because I don't have too much to say about it. This is a movie called Balls Up. And this is a movie that stars Mark Wahlberg and Paul Walter Hauser as condom salesmen. And they're trying to sell a condom that will go over the testicles. And the adventure that they go on is they go to the World Cup, and the scenario is essentially if you've seen that King of the Hill episode where Hank and his friends screw up a game that causes Texas to lose, and they have to find a way out of the stadium. It's that, but in a feature film setting and in South America. And there isn't much more to it than that. It's mostly just a series of raunchy jokes in between there. And I don't have a problem with gross out raunchy jokes, but the problem with this movie is that the raunchy jokes are meant to carry the movie. So like there's a joke where like they have to swallow like condoms full of cocaine, which is kind of funny, but they linger a little bit too long on it. And when they linger too long, that's when the improv starts. And the improv just doesn't work. And especially with the supporting characters, like you have like Benjamin Bratt as as a drunk Brazilian official, and Sacha Baron Cohen as a drug dealer who just spits out gibberish words. It's like, I get it. He did this for like the Ali G show, but it does not work here. I could not get into the groove of this film, and I wish I could. The twists are revealed too late. The raunchy humor is okay, but it's not good enough to stand on. The improv is awful. I hate the way the characters have the back and forth here, and there's no flow to it. It just feels like a series of bits where they just shove comedic actors in and just hope that some good improv and back and forth will come out of the staging by just, shoving in actors like Sacha Baron Cohen and Eric Andre and Benjamin Bratt into the equation, just thinking something good will come of it. It doesn't. Balls Up sucks. It's one of the worst films I've seen this year. And that's all you need to know. So I'll get back to reading chat here. Rody NT says, are you going to do a 50K Q&A for your... are you going to do a Q&A for your 50K? I am, yeah. Well, here's the thing. I think, like, at the very least, I should be doing a Q&A. I think that's a given. But I got to come up with something more... I got to come up with something else to do besides that. Because I do want to do Q&A. And I do think that'll take up a big stream. But I also want to plan something a little extra for it. So there's a few ideas I've been kicking around. And I'm going to... I might host a poll for it. Or I might... Actually, no. I think I might surprise you. I think it'd be more fun to just surprise everyone on a Q&A stream. Because I feel like Q&A would take up a lot. So I should maybe find something interesting to do for that stream. But not make it as long as like getting to the questions. So yeah. There will be a Q&A stream. Say my name. It is a fun name, I gotta admit. Let's see. Asylvania says, yeah, sounds like the funniest part of that film is the title and or the premise. Yeah, here's the thing. I think here's the problem with this movie is that the idea that they're making a condom that goes over the balls makes me question like the technicality of what's the right word I'm looking for here? Of the cleanliness. I'm trying to think of like the sanitation aspect of what would happen with how that condom would be applied afterward. Not applied, but how it would be disposed of and what it would leave behind. And the thing is, I should not be thinking that in a film like this. I should just think, okay, that's a silly, stupid idea. But I think it's a good idea to get it. I think, fine, whatever. It can get to the other jokes. There are no other jokes. So I'm just like staring at this condom that they've developed, which it doesn't help. The movie keeps pointing this out at several points like, oh, this is a great idea. How come nobody else thought of it? And I'm just sitting here, for like the fourth time they say this. I'm like, I can think of a few good reasons why you would not do this and why you should question it. And I kept waiting, like, if this film really wanted to be funny, it should have had that moment. It should have had that moment where somebody came out and said, wait, I don't think this would work with your particular design. I don't see how that would work. And it never happened. So I'm just like, I'm getting angry at like the construction of a condom in a movie where that isn't the point, which is a bad sign. It's because like I said, there should be enough jokes here where I am not questioning that. That should be like something I'm willing to forgive because the rest of the movie is funny, and it's not, which is the worst. That's the worst thing that can happen if the movie's not funny. Not just that you don't laugh, but that you get bored and you start questioning everything. You start questioning the editing. You start questioning the little details in the background. You start like scrutinizing the accents and the delivery of everything, which is the worst part of like a failing comedy. The worst part of a comedy is not that you laugh. The worst is not that you don't laugh. The worst part is that you're so bored, you focus on other things. See, Rodian T says, humiliatingly difficult movie trivia. Oh, yeah. Oh, my. Well, I want to thank everybody so much for the super chats, and I'm really sorry that they weren't working here. We are having technical difficulties with the alert. It's got some problems, but I will be sure to fix that for next time because there were some fun like super chats I had going for it. Because I've triggered like movie quotes for it and everything. All right, so well, we've gotten to the end of the stream here, so let's do a quick recap of the movies we reviewed on today's stream. I reviewed Mortal Kombat 2, pretty good dose of the dumb and the violent, which I thought was a lot more fun than the reboot, and managed to combine a lot of the elements I loved from the 90s original film. It's got a lot of fatalities, if that's what you're looking for, and a lot of decent references to the games, but you don't have to play the games, and you don't have to see the first film to have a lot of fun with this film. This was pretty good dumb fun. I also talked about Blue Heron, a drama about recalling the past, as the feature directorial debut by Rumvari, and I think it's definitely a strong debut. It's a film that makes you question your own memories and childhood and how much you can recall. It hit me deep on an emotional level. It's one of the best films of the year. I reviewed Atropia, a 9/11 era satire about the military theatrical industrial complex, which feels like it should be more pointed, but unfortunately it just kind of falls back on a decent romance, but not a good enough romance to overlook the wasted potential of war satire. And I reviewed Balls Up, which sucks. So, among all those films, there's Mortal Kombat 2 and Blue Heron are pretty good. And since, hey, Blue Heron is not opening up until next week, so you could see it then. And for this weekend, you could see Mortal Kombat 2. So there you go. You have good options there. So, if you would like to read reviews of everything I talked about here, you can check out my website, movieswithmark.com, which is also where I post the reviews early, which is why a lot of people who follow this channel already know about Mortal Kombat 2 being really fun and Blue Heron being so damn good, because I do post the reviews up there as well. And if you want to stay up to date on the latest movies like Blue Heron, because if you've watched the stream, you now have good info. You can now tell everybody about this little film called Blue Heron that's coming out that they should probably check it out. It's pretty good for conversation. You can get more of that by subscribing to this channel to stay up to date on the latest movies as they come out. And it's the summer movie season, so there's going to be a lot coming up. We've got a new Star Wars, we got Supergirl, we've got Minions, and we've got like a whole bunch of the new Super Troopers, if anyone's interested in that. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff to look forward to this summer, and we'll see if it's any good. So be sure that you're subscribed to this channel, and if you'd like to support it further, super chats help. And I wanted to thank very much KJXana and Nick Stuff for your super chats. But we also have a Patreon below, which gives you access not only to my movie essays early, but it will also support my writing, where I'm currently writing books on movie history. In particular, I'm writing a book on banned movies, and patrons can read each chapter as it is finished. And once it is finished, they will get a copy. $3 tier gets you a digital copy, and $15 tier will get you a physical copy, as well as a digital copy as well. So, if you like all that, be sure to stay tuned to this channel. Nick Stuff says, think I'm most hyped about Supergirl and Lobo, baby. Yeah, Lobo's very good casting. How well they use him, we'll have to see. I hope they do, because this is perfect casting. I don't want DC to betray me again, because they did with Green Lantern. They cast Mark Strong as Sinestro, which is the perfect Sinestro, and they wasted him. I hope they don't waste Lobo. Let's hope so. I'm confident though. I'm confident that with James Gunn's. I know James Gunn didn't direct this, but it is under James Gunn's guidance. So I'm hoping that it'll still be a pretty good film. Let's hope. So we'll see this summer. So stay tuned to this channel. I've got more. What do I have? I have more video essays coming up. I have finished the script for a video essay profile on Rev Says Desu, which y'all voted for in the poll. I am currently working on the next Masculinity in Movies series. Yes, I am continuing it. I haven't forgot about it, but it's going to take a while just because I'm focusing on film franchises, so it's going to take a little bit more time. But I am working on the Predator script, and there are a few other ones in the works, which I'm not sure I'm ready to pull the trigger on, but we'll see. And if nothing else, I'm glad that I set up like 2 different types of video essays on this channel. I have the Masculinity in Movie series, and I do have the YouTube profile series. So we've got those two, and y'all can vote on them. And just so that if anyone's curious, for the next like Movies and Masculinity series, there will be a vote, and it won't be the same options last time. I am going to mix it up. So it's not just going to be like the same stuff from the 80s. There's going to be some stuff from the 90s and the 70s and some more recent stuff that I'm going to offer in the poll. So we're going to expand on everything. Yeah, like that like the Rambo say. I was very proud of that. So I want to like make sure we can do more stuff like that. So thank you very much, Nick Stuff, for the comment on that. So yeah, more stuff on the horizon, which means I got to get back to work on that. So until next time, I'll be back in about 2 weeks with more movie reviews. So until then, have a good one, everybody.